pinnacle of human perspective.
Welcome to Unbiased and On the Fence. I'm Shane. Thank you so much for joining me. Well, in this episode, we're going to do some fun Law of One stuff and about our solar system. But first things first, a couple of months ago, I did a video about the Ariana Grande. Uh, it was actually the second one I did about the Ariana Grande, where it talked about compartmentalization and the whole Hempstead cover up with Pizzagate and all that. And I introduced you all to Nathan from Lift the Veil. Well, it turns out his channel got taken down, but he's got a new channel up called Lift the Veil 2. It's linked in the description. So I just wanted to let you guys know he's got a lot of great information and definitely someone who's out there exposing things and doing a great job at it. So I went to his old channel. It's still up, but I guess it's locked up for a certain amount of time. So he's got this other one going. So I was just trying to get the word out for people like me that probably didn't even know that it was taken down. So on this one, the Law of One, we're going to be looking at our solar system, uh, a planet that many know as Maldek, Mars, Venus, and Ra's history within our solar system. So exciting stuff. This comes from, this is also linked in the description, but it's a section called the solar system history. So the questioner says, thank you. Can you give me a brief history of the metaphysical principles of the development of each of our planets around the sun and their function with respect to evolution of beings? I am Ra. We shall give you a metaphysical description only of those planets upon which individual mind, body, spirit complexes have been, are, or shall be experienced. You may understand the other spheres to be a part of the Logos. We take the one known as Venus. The planetary sphere was one of rapid evolution. It is our native Earth, and the rapidity of the progress of the mind body spirit complexes upon its surface was due to harmonious interactions. Upon the entity known to you as Mars, as you have already discussed, this entity was stopped in mid-third density, thus being unable to continue in progression due to the lack of hospitable conditions upon the surface. This planet shall be undergoing healing for some of your space-time millennia. The planet which you dwell upon has a metaphysical history well known to you, and you may ask about it if you wish. However, we have spoken to a great degree upon this subject. The planet known as Saturn has a great affinity for the infinite intelligence, and thus it has been dwelled upon in its magnetic fields of time-space by those who wish to protect your system. And they're referring to the Council of Nine that they've talked about before there. The planetary entity known to you as Uranus is slowly moving through the first density and has the potential of moving through all densities. Maldek. Are there any people such as you find on Earth on any other planets in this solar system? Do you request space-time present information or space-time continuum information? Both. Great answer. At one time space in what is your past, there was a population of third density beings upon a planet which dwelt within your solar system. There are various names by which this planet has been named. The vibratory sound complex most usually used for your peoples is Maldek. These entities, destroying their planetary sphere, thus were forced to find room for themselves upon this third density, which is the only one in your solar system at their time-space present, which was hospitable and capable of offering the lessons necessary to decrease their mind, body, spirit distortions with respect to the Law of One. How long ago did this happen in our years? I'm having difficulty communicating with this instrument. We must deepen her state. This occurred approximately 500,000 of your years ago. I think it would clarify things for us to go back to the time just before the transfer of souls from Maldek, see how the law of one operated with respect to this transfer and why this was necessary. What happened to Maldek, or the people on Maldek, to cause them to lose their planet? How long ago did this occur? I am Ra. The peoples of Maldek had a civilization somewhat similar to that of the societal complex known to you as Atlantis, in that it gained much technological information and used it without care for the preservation of their sphere, following to a majority extent the complex of thought, ideas, and actions which you may associate with your so-called negative polarity or the service to self. This was, however, for the most part, couched in a sincere belief thought structure which seemed to the perception of the mind-body complexes of the sphere to be positive and of service to others. The devastation that racked their biosphere and caused its disintegration resulted from what you call war. The escalation went to the furthest extent of the technology the social complex had at its disposal in the space-time present of the then time. This time was approximately 705,000 of your years. The cycles had begun much earlier upon the sphere due to its relative ability to support the first dimensional life forms at an earlier point in the space-time continuum of your solar system. These entities were so traumatized by this occurrence that they were in what you may call a social complex knot or tangle of fear. Some of your time passed. No one could reach them. No beings could aid them. Approximately 600,000 of your years ago, the then existing members of the Confederation were able to deploy a social memory complex and untie the knot of fear. The entities were then able to recall that they were conscious. This awareness brought them to the point upon what you would call the lower astral planes, where they could be nurtured until each mind-body-spirit complex was able, finally, to be healed of this trauma to the extent that each entity was able to examine the distortions it had experienced in the previous life illusion complex. After this experience of learned teaching, the group decision was to place upon itself a type of what you may call karma alleviation. For this purpose, they came into incarnation within your planetary sphere in what were not acceptable human forms. This, then, they have been experiencing until the distortion of destruction are replaced by distortions towards the desire for a less distorted vision of service to others. Since this was the conscious decision of the great majority of those beings in the Maldek experience, the transition to this planet began approximately 500,000 of your years ago, and the type of body complex available at that time was used. When Maldek was destroyed, did all people of Maldek have the problem, or were some advanced enough to transfer to other planets? I am Ra. In the occurrence of planetary dissolution, none escaped, for this is an action which redounds to the social complex of the planetary complex itself. None escaped the knot or tangle. Questioner: you said yesterday that Maldek was destroyed due to warfare. If Maldek had destroyed itself due to warfare, would it have become a planet that evolved with self-service, and would the entities have increased in density, gone on to say the fourth, fifth density in the negative sense, or the sense of self-service? I am Ra. The planetary social memory complex Maldek had in common with your own sphere the situation of a mixture of energy directions. Thus it, though unknown, would most probably have been a mixed harvest. A few moving to fourth density, a few moving towards fourth density in service to self, the great majority repeating third density. This is approximate due to the fact that parallel possibility probability vortices cease when action occurs and new probability possibility vortices are begun. Mars. Questioner. The people that we now have, the first people, like us, where did they come from? How did they evolve? I am Ra. You speak of third density experience. The first of those to come here were brought from another planet in your solar system called by you the red planet, Mars. This planet's environment became inhospitable to third density beings. The first entities, therefore, were of this race, as you may call it, manipulated somewhat by those who were guardians at that time. Questioner, what race is that, and how did they get from Mars to here? I am Ra. The race is a combination of the mind-body-spirit complexes of those of your so-called red planet and a careful series of genetical adjustments made by the guardians of that time. These entities arrived or were preserved for the experience upon your sphere by a type of rebirthing which is non-reproductive, but consists of preparing genetic material for the incarnation of the mind-body-spirit complexes of those entities from the red planet. Then I'm assuming what you're saying is that the guardians transferred the race here after the race had died from the physical as we know it on Mars. Is that correct? I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Were the entities of the red planet following the law of one prior to leaving the red planet? Ra. The entities of the red planet were attempting to learn the laws of love, which form one of the primal distortions of the law of one. However, the tendencies of these people towards bellicose actions caused such difficulties in the atmospheric environment of their planet that it became inhospitable for third density experience before the end of its cycle. Thus, the red planet entities were unharvested and continued in your illusion to attempt to learn the law of love. Questioner. How long ago did this transfer occur from the red planet to Earth? I am Ra. In your time, this transfer occurred approximately 75,000 years ago. 75,000 years ago? I am Ra. This is approximately correct. Ra's history. Can you give me some kind of history of your social memory complex and how you became aware of the law of one? I am Ra. The path of our learning is graven in the present moment. There is no history, as we understand your concept. Picture, if you will, a circle of being. We know the Alpha and Omega as infinite intelligence. The circle never ceases. It is present. The densities we have traversed at various points in the cycle correspond to the characteristics of cycles. First, the cycle of awareness. Second, the cycle of growth. Third, the cycle of self-awareness. Fourth, the cycle of love or understanding. Fifth, the cycle of light or wisdom. Sixth, the cycle of light love, love light or unity. Seventh, the gateway cycle. Eighth, the octave which moves into a mystery we do not plumb. Questioner. This may be too long a question for this working, but I will ask it, and if it is too long, we can continue at a later time. Could you tell me of the development of the social memory complex Ra from its first beginnings, and what catalyst it used to get to where it is now in activation of rays? Is this too long a question? I am Ra. The question does not demand a long answer. For we who experienced the vibratory densities upon that planetary sphere which you call Venus were fortunate in being able to move in harmony with the planetary vibrations, with a harmonious graduation to second, to third, and to fourth, and a greatly accelerated fourth density experience. We spent much time space, if you will, in fifth density, balancing the intense compassion we had gained in fourth density. The graduation again was harmonious, and our social memory complex, which had become most firmly cemented in fourth density, remained of a very strong and helpful nature. Our sixth density work was also accelerated because of the harmony of our social memory complex, so that we were able to set out as members of the Confederation to even more swiftly approach graduation to seventh density. Our harmony, however, has been a grievous source of naivety as regards working with your planet. Is there a brief query before we leave this instrument? Questioner: what civilization was it that helped Ra using the pyramid shape while Ra was in third density? I am Ra. Your people have a fondness for the naming. These entities have begun their travel back to the Creator and are no longer experiencing time. Questioner: then, since Ra evolved initially on Venus, Ra is of the same archetypical origin as that which we experience here. Is that correct? I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: does Ra have any experience or knowledge of or travel to, in one form or another, any of these other galaxies? I am Ra, yes. It's unimportant, but just roughly, how many other of these galaxies has Ra, shall we say, traveled to? I am Ra. We have opened our hearts in radiation of love to the entire creation. Approximately 90% of the creation is at some level aware of the sending and able to reply. All of the infinite logi are one in the consciousness of love. This is the type of contact which we enjoy rather than travel. Questioner: so that I can just get a little idea of what I am talking about, what are the limits of Ra's travel in the sense of directly experiencing or seeing the activities of various places? Is it solely within this galaxy? And if so, how much of this galaxy? Or does it include some other galaxies? I am Ra. Although it would be possible for us to move at will throughout the creation within this logos, that is to say, the Milky Way galaxy, so called, we have moved where we were called to service. These locations being, shall we say, local and including Alpha Centauri, planets of your solar system which you call the Sun, Cepheus, and Zeta Reticuli. To these sublogi we have come, having been called. Questioner: was the call in each instant from the third density beings, or was this call from additional or other densities? I am Ra. In general, the latter supposition is correct. In the particular case of the Sun sublogos, third density is the density of calling. Questioner: Ra then has not moved at any time into one of the other major galaxies. Is this correct? I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: does Ra have knowledge of, say, any other major galaxy or the consciousness of or anything in that galaxy? I am Ra. We assume you are speaking of the possibility of knowledge of other major galaxies. There are wanderers from other major galaxies drawn to the specific needs of a single call. There are those among our social memory complex which have become wanderers in other major galaxies. Thus, there has been knowledge of other major galaxies, for to one whose personality or mind-body-spirit complex has been crystallized, the universe is one place and there is no bar upon travel. However, our interpretation of your query was a query concerning the social memory complex traveling to another major galaxy. We have not done this, nor do we contemplate it, for we can reach in love with our hearts. Questioner: I was wondering if, in that some of the wanderers from Ra going to the other major galaxies, that is, leaving this system of 200 plus billion stars of lenticular shape and going to another cluster of billions of stars and finding their way to some planetary situation there, would any of these wanderers encounter the dual polarity that we have here, the both the service to self and the service to others polarity? I am Ra, this is correct. Questioner: how many of our years ago was Ra's third density ended? I am Ra. The calculations necessary for establishing this point are difficult, since so much of what you call time is taken up before and after third density as you see the progress of time from your vantage point. We may say in general that the time of our enjoyment of the choice making was approximately 2.6 million of your sun years in your past. However, we correct this instrument. Your term is billion, 2.6 billion of your years in your past. However, this time, as you call it, is not meaningful, for our intervening space-time has been experienced in a manner quite unlike your third density experience of space-time. That's pretty interesting. Questioner: what was your reason for leaving? I am Ra. We wished to be of service. Questioner: were some of Ra's population negatively harvested at the end of Ra's third density? I am Ra. We had no negative harvest as such, although there had been two entities which had harvested themselves during the third density in the negative or service to self path. There were, however, those upon the planetary surface during third density whose vibratory patterns were in the negative range but were not harvestable. Questioner: what was Ra's average total population incarnate on Venus in third density? The number. I am Ra. We were a small population which dwelt upon what you would consider difficult conditions. Our harvest was approximately 6,500,000 mind-body-spirit complexes. There were approximately 32 million mind-body-spirit complexes repeating third density elsewhere. Questioner: what was the attitude just prior to harvest of those harvestable entities of Ra with respect to those who were obviously unharvestable? I am Ra. Those of us which had the gift of polarity felt deep compassion for those who seemed to dwell in darkness. This description is most apt, as ours was a harshly bright planet in the physical sense. There was every attempt made to reach out with whatever seemed to be needed. However, those upon the positive path have the comfort of companions, and we of Ra spent a great deal of our attention upon the possibilities of achieving spiritual or metaphysical adepthood, or work in indigo ray, through the means of relationships with other selves. Consequently, the compassion for those in darkness was balanced by the appreciation of the light. Questioner: what techniques did the two negatively harvested entities use for negative polarization on such a positively polarized planet? I am Ra. The techniques of control over others and domination unto the physical death was used in both cases. Upon a planetary influence much unused to slaughter, these entities were able to polarize by this means. Upon your third density environment, at the time of your experiencing such entities would merely be considered, shall we say, ruthless despots which waged the holy war. Questioner. Did these two entities evolve from the second density of the planet Venus along with the rest of the population of Venus that became Ra from second density to third? I am Ra. No. Questioner. What was the origin of these two entities of which you speak? I am Ra. These entities were wanderers from earlier positive fifth density. Questioner. And yet, though they had already evolved through a positive fourth density, they, shall we say, flipped polarity in the reincarnating in third density? Is this correct? I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. What was the catalyst for their change? I am Ra. In our peoples there was what may be considered, from the viewpoint of wisdom, an overabundance of love. These entities looked at those still in darkness and saw that those of a neutral or somewhat negative viewpoint found such harmony, shall we say, sickening. The wanderers felt that a more wisdom-oriented way of seeking love could be more appealing to those in darkness. First one entity began its work. Quickly the second found the first. These entities had agreed to serve together, and so they did, glorifying the one Creator, but not as they intended. About them were soon gathered those who found it easy to believe that a series of specific knowledges and wisdoms would advance one towards the Creator. The end of this was the graduation into fourth density negative of the wanderers, which had much power of personality, and some small deepening of the negatively polarized element of those not polarizing positively. There was no negative harvest as such. Questioner. What was the reason for the wandering of these two wanderers, and were they male and female? I am Ra. All wanderers come to be of assistance in serving the Creator, each in its own way. The wanderers of which we have been speaking were indeed incarnated male and female, and this is by far the most efficient system of partnership. Questioner. As a wild guess, one of these entities wouldn't be the one who has been our companion here for some time in our sessions, would it? I am Ra. No. Questioner. Then from what you say, I am guessing that these wanderers returned or wandered to Ra's third density to possibly seek greater wisdom into what they saw as an overabundance of compassion in the Ra culture. Is this correct? I am Ra. This is incorrect, in the sense that before incarnation, it was the desire of the wanderers only to aid in service to others. The query has correctness when seen from the viewpoint of the wanderers within that incarnation. Questioner. I just can't understand why they would think that a planet that was doing as well as Ra was doing, as far as I can tell, would need wanderers in order to help with a harvest. Was this at an early point in Ra's third density? I am Ra. It was in the second cycle of 25,000 years. We had a harvest of 6 out of 30, to speak roughly, millions of mind-body-spirit complexes, less than 20%. Wanderers are always drawn to whatever percentage has not yet polarized, and come when there is a call. There was a call from those which were not positively polarized as such, but which sought to be positively polarized and sought wisdom, feeling the compassion of other selves upon Venus and complacent or pitying towards other selves. Questioner. What was the attitude of these entities after they graduated into fourth density negative and the veil being removed? They realized that they had switched polarities. I am Ra. They were disconcerted. Questioner. Did they continue striving to polarize negatively for the fifth density negative harvest, or did they do something else? I am Ra. They worked with the fourth density negative for some period until, within this framework, the previously learned patterns of the self had been recaptured and the polarity was, with great effort, reversed. There was a great deal of fourth density positive work then to be retraced. Questioner. How is Ra aware of this information? By what means does Ra know the precise orientation of these two entities in fourth density negative, etc.? I am Ra. These entities join Ra in fourth density positive for a portion of the cycle which we experienced. Questioner. I assume then that they came in late, is this correct? I am Ra. Yes. Venus. Questioner. It appears that the end of Ra's third density coincided with the beginning of this planet's second density. Is that correct? I am Ra. This is roughly correct. Questioner. Did the planet Venus become a fourth density planet at that time? I am Ra. This is so. Questioner. Did it later then become a fifth density planet? I am Ra. It later became a fourth fifth density planet, then later a fifth density planet for a large measure of your time. Both fourth and fifth density experiences were possible upon the planetary influence of what you call Venus. Questioner. What is its density at present? I am Ra. Its core vibrational frequency is sixth density. However, we, as a social memory complex, had elected to leave that influence. Therefore, the beings inhabiting this planetary influence at this time space are fifth density entities. The planet may be considered a fifth, sixth density planet. So that is it for that. And how exciting. There's still people on Venus, huh? And it's shining brighter than ever, and they're dealing with this whole global warming thing there too, huh? It's pretty exciting stuff. So that is just about it for this installment. I do appreciate you all watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.